Good afternoon, Facebook, or still morning, I think so. Kind of getting in here a little bit early to get a few things, make sure that I can be heard and that all the audio and video things work out. Kind of shooting this from the hip in my family room, which kind of has a bit of an echo, high ceilings and all. But for those of you who are joining in, thank you so much. Please share this out. One of the things we're going to be doing today, our purpose here is to talk about real estate safety, but all of this stuff relates back to personal security and safety in some way, shape, or form, regardless of what your industry is. Some of this stuff is going to be tailored specifically to real estate agents, in that some of the training that we're going to talk about that is currently out there, we're going to kind of debunk a lot of that stuff and show you why that doesn't really work. But so far, really what we're going to cover today is going to work through a whole bunch of different areas. And a lot of it's going to be specific to real estate, but not really. So the reason I'm doing this is that I have a very specific background. I don't want to do this whole big bio thing about talking about me forever, but I do have a very specific background in personal security and safety. For almost 16 years now, I've been in the Army Reserve, and I've had a very specific set of jobs and skills within that, mainly around the area of WMDs. However, I do have over 600 personal security missions in Baghdad. What we did basically, we were kind of like bodyguards for high-ranking government officials from all over the country and all over the world. So that was kind of something pretty cool that we did, but it's something that I have done with a great deal of experience, and that's why I want to share that with you. I also have a wife, 2 sisters, 3 young daughters. So the stuff that I'm going to be sharing with you is really, I'm thinking about it in terms of what's good advice for them. How do I share what I know and my experiences with them? So thanks for everybody tuning in. I'm going to have to do this weird head thing, because in order to see the comments, I'm on my phone. I'm going to have to look over here to see what's going on. But hey, Ruben, what's happening, buddy? So I want this to be kind of interactive, even though I can't. I want to try and do something, figure out how to work with this so I don't have to turn my head every time. We'll work on that in future episodes. But I wanted to I've got some very specific things. This is not your typical real estate agent's safety class. The typical real estate agent safety class talks about things like meet at the office, check IDs, take a friend, break pepper spray, all of those types of things. And none of that is effective. Parts of it can be effective, but there's a big difference between can be effective and is effective over the long run. You see, things like meeting at the office. This is the #1 most popular thing that agents talk about, is meeting at the office first, meeting at the office. Well, let me just start with saying that meeting at the office doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It may deter some, but there are real world, actual cases that I can show you about real estate agents who met people at the office or at a public place, and then something horrible happened to them later on. Now, what you may be thinking is, yeah, well, that's kind of the exception rather than the rule. Well, we're dealing with something. Hey, Ruben, we're dealing with something that is a bit of a rare event. It's kind of that, it's not really a black swan, but and a black swan, for those of you who aren't familiar with that particular term, is something that you didn't anticipate that changes your world and changes your life forever. 9/11 is a great example on a big, massive scale of what a black swan event is. But when you're talking about your own personal safety and security, most people don't have a lot of experience in dealing with things that are right up close and personal when it comes to violence, rapes, sexual assaults, attacks, muggings, robberies. Most people don't have those types of experiences, and that's okay. That's a good thing. That's actually a very good thing. But when you have people who have no experience in dealing with those bad things, conducting training, coming up with ideas about how you should conduct yourself when it comes to personal security and safety, it just makes no sense. It just really doesn't. So meeting at the office, why this doesn't work is that most of the time you don't do it. I mean, let's start with that. Most agents don't meet their new clients at the office. They just don't. And if they may meet them at a Starbucks, the reasons that they tell themselves that they're doing this are not the right reasons. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to screen your prospective client, but you're not screening them in a way that is that tells you a whole lot. You ask some of the same questions. Where are you from? What are you looking for? What type of house are you looking for? How many bedrooms? How many square feet? What's your price range? All of this stuff can be predicted by the bad guy. And in the case of a very famous case such as Beverly Carter, she had a very a public persona. And she was popular and pretty and attractive, and people were gravitated to her. So it's very easy for someone to come in to, like the bad guys in this situation, and ask predictable or answer predictable questions. They had a response for what type of house are you looking for? How big should it be? Where are you looking? What's your price range? The bad guys had an answer for all of those questions. And there was no way that Beverly Carter in that instance, or you, could be able to tell anything from that. So the reason that you're meeting them there to try and screen them, or if you haven't done any type of screening, well, that's a bit of a specific task. So why is meeting at the office so important or taught so much? It's because people talk about, hey, well, you got to go take them into the office and have them meet somebody, introduce them to somebody at your office. Why? What are you going to do? Are they now going to screen them? Do they have some psychological profile? You guys remember that? Was it Meet the Fockers or one of those types of movies? Like, did that little thing where he's like, I can read you. I know what you're doing. The human lie detector. Well, okay, that's fiction. That's not real. There are some people who are very, very good at that, but overall, not many. So the reason that you're meeting people at the office is to try and deter bad guys from even meeting you in the first place. And there are other ways to go about doing that. And later on, we're going to break down some of those things. But the important thing to remember about meeting at the office or meeting at a public place is that it's not about where you start, it's about where you end up. You can start at the office, you can start at a Starbucks, and you can still end up in the back seat, in the trunk, or in a shallow grave in the case of Beverly Carter at the end of the day. And that's what you want to try and avoid. That is the thing, and that's why that big piece of meet at the office just doesn't work. It doesn't have enough tied to it. But that is the benchmark. That is the grand poobah of all things that are so-called realtor safety that are taught out there by the National Association of Realtors, typical brokers. And I say typical brokers not in a demeaning way, but in a way that they just don't have the experience in that type of world and that type of job. Real estate, compliance, law, got it. That's your field. When it comes to personal security, safety, and protecting people, that's kind of my thing. So quick side note on that whole realtor thing. I have a whole bunch of videos on my YouTube channel about realtor safety. And I had them labeled realtor safety, but twice I was contacted by the legal department of the National Association of Realtors telling me that I need to take down the videos or change the titles away from realtor safety into real estate agent safety because I was misusing the term realtor. So you're going to see a lot of that real estate agent stuff. I wish I could just use that one word because, well, that's what everybody associates with is realtor safety. But the National Association of Realtors twice has reached out to me, and I've questioned it on all occasions, and I've brought back questions and say, hey, why are you beating me up for this type of thing? And their answer was, just take it down. So in my humble opinion, at least when it comes to this, their interests are in protecting their brand more than it is their safety training. They are putting on, this is National Safety Month, Realtor Safety Month. This is something that's sponsored by the National Association of Realtors. They're doing 2 webinars all month, two. One of them is by a woman who also sells a safety-related product, so she's trying to get some business off of that. And then another one is just some broker from somewhere that has a little bit of somewhat, maybe, sort of, I don't know. I can't tell any. There's no security background. No, there's no nothing. I have no idea why they're doing anything like that. Hey, Rodney, what's up, my man? So there are some holes and some gaps. And that's not to say that the association or that your broker, all the other training classes that you've been getting are evil. It's just I would like you to follow your own advice. And that is seek experts when you need it. Seek experts in the field of personal security and safety. And those are not real estate agents. When you have, you've heard the things like when you have a $400,000 real estate problem, you need a real estate agent to help you. Well, they say realtor, but I'll get in trouble if I use that word. So then you have, if you have a $100,000 tax problem, you go to a tax accountant. You don't go to your buddy, down the road. Well, then when it comes to your own life and safety, where do you go? the real estate association, your broker, your buddy at the office, or your friend at the office whose husband was a mall security officer for 4 years. I mean, come on, this is silly. Is it really messed up, Steve? Is it sideways? Because I'm trying to get this thing to be to orient landscape. But appreciate that feedback, man. How is that? I want it to go landscape fag, but if it doesn't want to play that way, then I won't play that way. Hey, man. Is that better? Now you get the full, not the full Monty. I'm absolutely wearing pants. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it, man. Okay, so now that everybody else was looking at me sideways, yeah, cool, huh? Thanks a lot. Appreciate that. So one of the things that makes this important to me is the fact that I have a level of experience in this particular field in safety and security, and at a very high level. Again, to reiterate, one of my jobs in Baghdad and over 600 missions was to personally plan, conduct, and lead small teams, small security teams protecting general officers, State Department officials, and all kinds of other high value targets in and around the streets of Baghdad. And that's just a very different set of skills, and it's very unique. We have a lot of law enforcement guys out there, and LEOs, I love you, man, but your job is different. Your job is when the call comes into 911, you go sirens ablazing, guns at your side. And then probably you're going to have more than one of your colleagues show up at about the same time with you. That's a very different scenario than deliberately going into some place that may not be the safest in the world and staying safe at the same time. So the reason that's important and that's relevant to you as real estate agents is that the job description kind of fits. I didn't know most of the people that I was going to be taking and transporting before I met them that day. So like you, I didn't know who I was meeting. Often, I didn't know where I was going that far in advance. I did have time to plan and do some other types of things, but it was Baghdad. I mean, I don't vacation there. I'd never been there before. Many times we went to places I've never heard of, never been, never seen. And so I'm meeting a stranger, taken to a place I've never been, into a country and down avenues and streets of people that want to kill us. I mean, like literally want to kill us all the time. IEDs and small arms fire and all kinds of other nonsense that goes out there. So that is why these two things are relevant. Those two things are the same. Being a law enforcement officer, even if you're an investigator, there's some really smart, really awesome guys out there in law enforcement that are investigators and they investigate crimes. But just like all other aspects or most other aspects of law enforcement, they arrive after the bad thing happens. After. Their training is in responding to bad things. And I want to help you not respond, but to prevent the whole thing in the beginning, to not have it happen. That's what bodyguards do. That's what personal security does. That's what executive protection guys do. But here's the good part. You don't have to be Jason Bourne. You don't have to be Bruce Lee. You don't have to be Rambo or the Terminator or anybody else. You have all the tools available already. You have everything that you need already within you. Now you're like, okay, whatever. But I mean that because if you've ever looked at some of the guys that work in corrections at like a prison, you can have, I know some folks that have done that, and pretty tiny people, little 5'5", 100-pound people who are in there with 6'5", 300-pound bodybuilder types that are big time hardened criminals, big time. And they can still control them. Thanks, buddy. Thanks, Steve. I appreciate it. But my pleasure. Still doing it. So the relevant information there is how do you control the crowd and how do you use what you have? See, that small person who's 5 foot nothing and 100 pounds is not going to be able to physically control someone who's 6'5" and 300 pounds. They have to use something different. They have to use a different set of tools, a different set of things. So one of the ways that we look at this in our field is you get what you have and you utilize it to the best of your ability. It's not trying to develop and pull all these things together and pull all these tools and start with pepper spray and then put that in your purse and then back up from there. We got to start with your brain first. Train your mind first. Train your brain first. Your body is your next resort, your next set of tools. But I don't mean getting into a physical altercation. I don't want to get in a fight. I want to avoid the fight. I don't want it because I don't know whether or not the other guy is packing a different type of weapon that's going to harm me. I've got a knife. He's got a gun. I lose. I don't want to start that fight. I don't want to even be in it. So we use what we already have. Think about how you see it in nature. There are those who are gazelles, skunks, turtles, birds, they all have different unique sets of skills and capabilities that are natural to them, and they know how to use them. You won't see an eagle swimming. Yeah, they'll dive down in the water, but they don't spend any time there. They're just going down to get their bait, and that's their thing. They also see really, really, really well. But there are other animals out there who don't see very well. You take a turtle, for instance. A turtle is very, very slow. And what do? They just curl up inside their shell because that's their main mechanism of defense. What does a skunk do when it gets threatened? The whole animal world knows that a skunk has a pretty powerful smell, to say the least. So when the skunk sprays that stuff out at you, it doesn't take but one time for most animals to learn that don't mess with skunks. So everything in nature has its own characteristics. And what I want to be able to share with you is how to tap into and unlock those characteristics that you have inside yourself. So if you're normally one of those people who others say, you're a really good judge of character, you always pick up on things that are a little bit quicker than I do, then that is part of your set of skills. Now, I'm not here to tell you what your skills are. You have to know that for yourself. You have to ask some questions of yourself and figure out what it is that you do better than anybody else. What keeps you safe right now? What is it about what you do and how you act right now that has kept you out of trouble? What are some things that get you into trouble? Do you have a very short temper, and that short temper gets you into trouble? Do you have a nature that just, you can't back down from a fight and you want to get right up in there? So thanks, Ruben. I will. You've got a question on there, so you continue to follow. Send me YouTube channel. I will put the link down below after this, and you will all see that for where to go for more of this. So after this whole thing is done, I'm going to pull some of this stuff down and push it over into YouTube if I can. Maybe I can edit that part out where I started sideways. But anyway, so what we're going to do, what I want you to do is develop for yourself your own system of questions and answers. Got to be able to figure out those things that you have already for yourself. Don't start at the gun shop. Don't start with pepper spray. Start right here. What is it that keeps you safe? What do you do? And you hear a lot of people out there, a lot of these so-called safety trainers that talk about things like, hey, women have a disadvantage. Women are at a disadvantage when it comes to personal security and safety. Bull. That's not true at all. That is absolutely not true. Have you ever heard of phrases like a woman's intuition? How about a mama bear? Is that something that most of nature wants to tangle with? So you've got woman's intuition, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, and a mama bear. And you've got those characteristics. Maybe one, maybe all of those things. Maybe those are part of your skill set. Maybe not. Maybe that's not your type. Maybe you're the den mother type. Maybe you're the trusting of everybody type. Well, then maybe you want to go the route Ronald Reagan did, and that was trust but verify. Trust everybody, but verify those things that you can. What's up, Big D? So what it means to you is to use the tools that you already have and understand what it is that makes you safe and keeps you safe. And it starts with your head. Then if you have to, you use your body. And I don't mean starting a fight. I mean physically leaving the area where the threat exists. Now, in the military, we call this getting off the X. It's very, very important to get off the X. We've all heard of those times where, or you remember the cartoon, the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote, and Wile E. Coyote was always standing there on top of that X. And no matter which way he put that big catapult with the giant rock, he always ended up on the X, and the rock smashed him in the head. Well, Wile E. Coyote is not the guy to follow when it comes to personal security and safety. A little bird owned him most of the time. But the point is not to stay on that X, not to be in the vicinity, not to be in the area, to leave and to go over there, to leave the area and hit out of town. Get off the X. That is your most important thing. You want quickness to react, but you also want speed to act as well. You hear in the real estate industry a lot of people talking about scripts. Well, what do I say? What do I say in order to get out of the house? Here's what you say. Nothing. You leave. There's no need to talk. There's no need to engage your brain into any type of verbal communication. It's pointless. You need to engage your brain into your feet and get out of the house. If you feel something's a little bit uncomfortable, you leave. You go outside and you call someone to help, or you just leave. It's a whole lot better to be able to explain later on and apologize to a client and say that, look, I'm sorry, I just felt uncomfortable and I had to leave. It's a whole lot better to do that than it is to try and explain to the police what happened that day. Or worse than that, imagine your family having to identify you or looking for you for days and to find you in a shallow grave out behind a cement plant like they did with Beverly Carter. So which is better, leave or work on a script? Don't work on a script. There's no script for this. You feel uncomfortable, you get out right then and there. Because the one thing that you haven't done that the bad guy has done is the bad guy's planned. You may have thought about safety for a few minutes a day, maybe a couple hours after watching some of these videos, but the bad guy's thinking about and planning that attack for weeks. It's what they do. And they don't want to get caught. So they've thought about every scenario that they can think about. What happens if? What happens if? What happens if? What happens if? That's the way they work. And you should not have to work that way. If you're a real estate agent, that's not your thing. You shouldn't have to think along those lines. You're not going to be Jason Bourne. You're not going to be able to sit there and identify everybody in the room when that guy's carrying a knife, that guy's cheating on his wife. I mean, that's insanity. You're not going to be able to do that. And I don't want to be that person. After getting back from Iraq after my tour, it was, it was kind of tough to downgrade yourself. We had a lot of time, a lot of missions. I mean, we were outside the wire a lot. And you're on, it's hard to explain, but every sense that you have, your sense of hearing, sight, smell, taste, everything is on such keen alert. I could never be able to describe what it feels like to be in that scenario, to really give the fullness of it. And then when you come home and you're back at Walmart and, now all of a sudden you're in that same crowded environment, you're in traffic in the city and it's difficult to disconnect yourself from that. It's difficult to disregard that idea that you want to key into all your emotions. You want to key into your sense of smell. You want to key into your sense of sight. You want to listen to everything, but you can't. And a lot of people have a lot of problems coming back from deployments, being able to transition from that state of mind and that state of being into something that's more integrated into society. They have a hard time with that. And I would never, ever, ever, ever wish that on anybody, to not be able to disconnect from that. Don't live your life in paranoia and fear that everything you hear and everything that you see and think that everybody is out there to hurt you. I'm an NRA guy. I'm a small arms expert, endowment member of the NRA. I'm a gun guy, but that's not my first line of defense. It's not my first option. It's my last. It's my absolute last option. I don't want to go to my gun. I do not want to go to my gun because I understand what it means that Sergeant Gross, hey, for y'all who aren't watching this, there's one of my mentors right there, Sergeant First Class Gross, who just chimed in on here. Good to see you, buddy. That's awesome. Thanks for tuning in. So it's important to understand that you don't need to be Jason Bourne. You don't need to be Bruce Lee. You're not going to go to a self-defense class for 3 hours on a Saturday and then all of a sudden be able to beat up some guy who's been in fights 4 or 5 times a week for his entire life. Some guy that's been in prison and, maybe for an assault charge or something like that. Yeah, he's going to be better at fighting than you. He's just going to be better at it. By the way, something that you may not know, you may not be aware of, but did you know that the Mexican mafia, some of them that have very famous names, I don't need to mention them here, and some of the others that are around the world, they actually have a reading list and a training plan for new recruits. Do you know what it is? Human anatomy. They study human anatomy. The Mexican mafia hands out human anatomy books in order to determine what particular systems of a human's body, if you impact that system, will immediately shut them down. Huh? Yeah, that's serious stuff. Are you studying human anatomy to understand where all those little points are? So yeah, you took that 3-hour class where you learned 3 or 4 different chokeholds that you could use on somebody going in super slow motion and not fighting back. Meanwhile, the real bad guys are out there literally training. Now, when a bad guy goes and does something and actually uses violence in a way that is obviously harmful, when they do that, they have to be really, really good at it or they don't survive. They don't survive. And if they don't survive, what's the point? So they get really, really good and they take it very, very seriously. They're not out there just, they're not doing the old windmill in a hurricane, just flopping at you. They're trying to hurt you and disable you right away. Think about it this way. Have you ever watched a fight, whether it's a mixed martial art fight or a boxing fight, and there's a TKO, a technical knockout. This is basically where the referee stops the fight, saying this guy's he's unfit to continue because his bells are rung or because something else is going on. He's physically, no matter what he wants to do, you see the guy trying to get back up. You see him trying to go, but he physically can't get back up. Real bad guys study those things. Real bad guys study those things and understand what it takes to hurt a human body and to disable it right away. They're not interested in scaring you. They're not interested in beating you up or getting into a 15-minute long drag down duel like you see on television where two guys are staring at each other and then they go in a fist fight throughout an empty warehouse for 45 minutes. That's not real. They want to end the fight like that so they can get out of there. Because the more time they're in the fight, the more chances they are of being hurt and more chances are they have of someone else showing up who can identify them, or worst case scenario, police show up, they could get arrested or shot that way. Yeah, they're not interested in that. So how does that relate back to you? These self-defense training classes that you take, I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I think it's a good idea. But you have to understand what you're doing when you're there. If you're taking a self-defense class, it is to develop your last set rules or your last set tool set for self-defense. It's your last resort. That's it. Firearm and then fist fight or whatever weapon you have, whether it's a pepper spray or whatever. It's very, very important to understand that the way the industry has been training everyone, particularly the real estate industry, is to start with the worst case scenario and train backwards. And by training backwards means that everybody says, carry pepper spray, get a weapon, tell someone where you're going. Why? That doesn't do anybody any good. Beverly Carter, again, famous case in Arkansas a couple of years ago, Beverly Carter told her husband exactly where she was going. He knew the house. So much so, they knew this area so well that when she didn't show up when she was supposed to, her husband went straight to that house and found her car sitting there empty. She had been long since abducted and later murdered. Told her husband exactly where to go. Yeah, not going to work. That's not effective. You can't start with the end. Now, where that helped is that helped police and that helped investigators. That helped her husband get there after she was already gone. By learning to fight, by learning to actually fight someone, you're putting your own life in your hands and you're hoping that you're a better fighter than the guy across from you. Good luck. I don't want to be in that. I don't like those odds. I do not like those odds personally. I also don't want to draw down on my weapon unless I absolutely have to. I also may or may not be carrying because there are laws that could put you in a really bad way if you're unlawfully carrying or unlawful discharge of a firearm, or you can't just go around shooting everybody. I've seen these dudes, internet Rambos, talking about, well, I'll just shoot them. You know, anybody messes with me, I'm going to draw down and put a whole bunch of 9mm or 45 caliber holes in them. No, you're not. If you are, you're going to jail. Just, so you know, you're allowed to do self-defense, and it's there's lots of different rules and things on that. You're allowed to defend yourself. You certainly are. But you have to understand what it means to engage with someone with deadly force. Deadly force is something you can't take back. You can't put the rounds back in your gun. You hear a lot of guys out there talking about firearm safety and go, well, this is how you do it. You draw down on the bad guy and then you just pop a couple holes in their chest, two to the chest, one to the head, right? Yeah, well, that's nonsense. First of all, even law enforcement officers who fire about 1,600 to 2,000 rounds a year, 1,600 to 2,000 rounds a year at about $1 a round. So they spend, the locality that they work for, the entity they work for, $1,500 to $2,000 just in ammo to train these folks. They still, according to studies that have gone on for decades, they still miss their targets under duress about 50% of the time. About 50% of the time. It is incredibly difficult to maintain your sense of being and understand your training and really react to pull your weapon out, make accurate shots, and actually end the threat. So what most people try to do to avoid that, and they understand this conceptually, most people understand it, is that they jumpstart it, and then they actually pull the gun quicker than they need to, or fire quicker than they need to. And you see some cases out there that are, wrongful death. You might not have a criminal trial, but you might have a civil trial of wrongful death or something along those lines. It's a very, very serious thing. Taking someone's life is something that you cannot change, you cannot alter. A lot of people have this idea in their head because they've seen Hollywood and they've seen all these movies that once you pull your gun out, somebody breaks into your house and you're just going to shoot them in the chest and they're going to die on your doorstep. And then the cops are going to come by, they're going to clean up a little bit, and then you're going to sit down and have a glass of wine and watch TV the rest of the night. Nope. It's going to be investigation after investigation. There's going to be a legal proceeding one way or the other. There's going to be a trial. There's going to be all these different things. And then there could be a wrongful death, a civil suit later on. It does not end there. There's a whole lot of stuff that happens after that. And it's all very, very difficult to deal with on a life standpoint. Once you decide and once you make that decision and act on the idea that you're going to take someone else's life, your life changes forever altering. So pepper spray, same kind of thing. Pepper spray is not legal to carry in all areas. It's in most, I'll say that, but most people don't buy pepper spray in bulk. And this is where that part breaks down. If you buy pepper spray, which is fine, one, can you get it? Can you get to it? Or is it down buried in your purse? If you're the kind of person who loses your car keys on a regular basis, keeping your pepper spray attached to them in the bottom of your purse is probably not the best idea. Or if you keep it in your glove box, can you even get in there? It's underneath, your registration data. It's underneath a, paper towel that you got for cleaning this. It's underneath a couple pens and business cards and all this other stuff. Can you even get to it? Oh, and by the way, if it's in your car and you're not, well, that doesn't do you any good. Are you going to carry it in your pocket? Nobody wants to carry that stuff around with them all the time. It's cumbersome and just nobody wants to do that. Are you going to hang it on you? Sure, whatever. Okay, well, now I've got it in my kit that I use every time I carry with me. Okay, great. Now that you carry it with you, it's always with you. You understand that. How often have you used it? How often have you used it? Did you practice with it? Can you use it in the cold when it's hot? Can you use it with gloves on? Do you know how far it goes? Do you know the dissemination pattern? Do you know the spray pattern that comes out of the side? Do you know what it smells like, what it feels like, what it looks like, how long it lasts? How much of this stuff do you have in there? Can you, is it just one of those one and done, you don't have much content, or can you pump it a couple times? Is it one spray and that's it? Does it leak? Do all of these other things? Because one of the worst things you can have with pepper spray, unlike a firearm, or generally speaking, the firearm is fairly simple to figure out. The big pointy end, that points toward the enemy, and don't do this. When it comes to pepper spray, there's over spray. So you can spray in this direction, but that is upwind. Bad guy is upwind. You spray the pepper spray. The bad guy is affected if you hit him, but you will be affected either way because the wind's going to blow it back onto you. That's not a fun situation. If you've never had the thrill and the love of being able to have some pepper spray in your face, trust me, you do not want it. Ain't fun. So have you practiced with it? Do you know what it's going to do? Do you know how it's going to operate? Do you know how it's going to work? Maybe, maybe not. Schultzy, what's up, buddy? What's up, man? Everybody know that one of my brothers in arms down there, Norman Schultz, the man behind the "Let's Do It." Oh, let's do this. Almost messed that up, man. Sorry about that. So pepper spray is kind of a thing, kind of tough to deal with. Weapons, firearms are a whole nother level of stuff. And by the way, in the state, wherever you happen to be, there are the rules and regulations involving the use of firearms and the carrying of firearms vary significantly from state to state and even locality to locality. Pennsylvania, for instance, is one of the most gun-friendly states, and as far as their concealed carry and all the other laws that they have around firearms, with two exceptions, Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. Philadelphia is extremely restrictive on who can and how you can use firearms in that city, within the city limits. So even though the state has these rules, the city has these, and they're even more restricted. So you really have to understand whether or not you can legally carry. Now, I don't have a lot of experience on the legal side of how this may play out, but there are a couple things that just kind of keep coming back up into my head. If I was to carry a firearm, Cedric, what's up, buddy? Long time no see. Another one of my old NCOs down there. He's big first sergeant now, or retiring soon, I think. But, so what happens with the firearms? As a real estate agent, if you're showing property, you're going into someone else's private property, and you don't really know what their feelings about firearms might be. So if you go into somebody else's home, showing property, and you discharge your firearm. And let's just skip right to the chase. You get into a bad situation with a client that you've taken there, or really a bad guy, and you shoot them in their bedroom, in the bedroom of the home that you're showing. I don't know about you, but I would think that the owners would be at least a little bit upset about that. And that they may want to pursue legal action, because now you, as a real estate agent, have killed someone in their master bedroom. Right? Yeah. I would think that through before you go start doing that. Or let's back it up a little bit. You didn't kill anybody. Hey, thanks, Sid. You didn't kill anybody, but you shot a bunch of holes through their artwork or through their walls, or you destroyed something in their house. I don't know. If it was me, I'd be pretty upset. I'd want to know, hey, what made you think that it was okay to do that? So you have to be very careful about your use of firearms when it comes to a real estate agent. And then, likewise, you hear the gun Rambos out there, these internet forum guys that say, well, I'm just going to deal with that. I'd rather be, how's the saying go? I'm going to screw it all up. But I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6, or something to that effect. Basically, you're saying that you'd rather go to court or face going to jail than dying. I get it. I really do. But let's skip a couple. Let's go over a couple things. What if it wasn't really a life-threatening situation? Have you ever heard of anybody with a specific high level of training, say a police officer, shooting someone when they thought that they had a weapon, but they didn't? Happens, right? So you, as John Q. Citizen, are going to be able to tell. You get this bad feeling, and that guy goes for something in his pocket, and you think it's a gun. It's really a cell phone, and you shoot them right there on the floor. Or let's just say you don't shoot them. You just pull out your gun and point it at their head, and they get upset. Probably rightfully so, if they're just going for their phone in their pocket. So now you have drawn a weapon. Is brandishing is the official. You've brandished a weapon and threatened someone's life who had a cell phone in their pocket. Okay, now there was no life-threatening situation. There was no possibility of dying. There was no possibility of being carried by 6 or whatever the scenario is. But now you have escalated things all the way to the point that you're facing felony charges. So now you're going to jail. Come on. You got to think about these things. It is not your first resort. Again, somebody starts going for something. I think they might be going for a gun. One, I'm going to start questioning myself of why I'm hanging around with somebody who I think has a gun in their pocket and wants to hurt me. That's my first thing. But let's move that aside for a second and talk about that one specific scenario. Is that if somebody starts going for something in their pocket, first thing I'm doing is getting out of town. Getting off that X. Remember we talked about that? Get off the X and get to somewhere where it's safe. Now that thing, wherever that's safe, might be the Wawa half a mile down the road. Oh, but the client's rode with you. Tough shit. Probably going to get kicked off Facebook for cussing. But that's the idea, is to get off the X and keep yourself safe, not to ramp up and bow up and try and face this confrontation on and on. There's too many of those stupid Vin Diesel movies and Tom Cruise crap on television that shows you that this is the way to confront the bad guys, just to get up in their face. That's really, really stupid. Really stupid. So don't do that. Don't rely on a weapon. Don't rely on pepper spray. Don't just meet at the office, because it's not enough. Don't just tell somebody where you're going, because that's not enough. Didn't work for Beverly Carter. Many of these things didn't work for her. So the other one is, okay, bring a friend. But who are you bringing? Who are you bringing and why? And this is where that starts to break down. You don't just bring someone who's a panic-driven individual who just has no idea about what to do and how to maintain their composure in a tough situation. Let me give you the real world example of that. We had we're in Baghdad, down in this lovely little shack on the banks of the Tigris River. It was our general officer, his aide, and 2 PSD guys, myself, and a contractor that they had brought to talk about some construction projects. And we were all inside this really itty bitty little shack. And there were, 5 or 6 different Iraqi police guys around. And that's who we were meeting when we were going there. And a dozen or so other guys wandering around all over the place outside. And we had never taken this one particular contractor with us. We'd taken all the other people and we provided security for them many times over. So we knew them pretty well. But we didn't know this one contractor guy. To say that he got a little nervous in that little shack, on the banks of the Tigris would be an understatement. The guy was shaking so bad. I mean, he was physically shaking. The Iraqi police officer, the man in charge of that particular area, he shared tea with us, which was very common. Many of the places that we went, they were very, cordial. Whether they were nice guys or not, that's not what I'm debating, but they were very cordial, and they would always offer us tea or something like that. So this guy's holding his tea, and I mean, it's that whole like rattling in the cup. I mean, it was a mess. The guy was an absolute mess. He was sweating profusely. He really didn't want to take off any of his stuff. He had his helmet on. I mean, all this, because typically, some of these places that you go, you downgrade your security posture because you're trying to. This was a very diplomatic situation where you're not trying to, be Rambo. You're trying to downgrade the situation. So you're taking off your helmet, you're relaxing, you're sitting down, and you're just kind of trying to bring all the tensions down. And here's this guy on the other side on the other couch, just shaking and going out of his mind. He can't hardly speak, obviously very disturbed. So through the interpreter, as we were leaving, the guy was, the Iraqi police officer was like, "Hey, don't bring that guy back. He made me nervous." It's like, he made you nervous. Here's this guy, excuse me. Here's this guy, just regular old American white guy, just sitting there in civilian clothes. I think he had a suit on even underneath his armor. So rattled that he made the Iraqi police guy uncomfortable. So you don't want to bring that guy. He may think, "Oh, I'm ready, I can do this, I'm ready, I can do this, I can go." And then something bad starts to happen, and that's the guy you brought with you. That's not good. That's so not good. Likewise, it's not good to bring that guy who wants to be Rambo on the spot and get in your face and do all this other kind of stuff. Yeah, that's not the right guy to bring either, because that guy's going to get you in trouble. That guy's going to get you in big trouble. He's the one, you guys watch those horror movies, right? And you're always wondering why the people in the horror movies, it's like, why are you investigating that sound? There's a murderer who's murdered half of your friends over this particular weekend down by this lake house. Why are you going to investigate? Don't bring that guy. Don't bring that guy. Don't bring that gal. Don't bring the one that wants to fight, who goes and gets the bat or the 2x4 out of the garage or the tire iron, and he goes, don't take that guy. So who are you taking and why? You also don't want to take somebody who's just, the nice person, because you don't want to take victim number 2. Because sometimes bad guys have friends. There are lots and lots of examples of that throughout the United States and the world of real estate agents who've been attacked by more than one assailant, more than one bad guy. So to think that you are going to be alone, and that the bad guy's going to be alone, and that by bringing 2 people, now you're 2, they're 1. Yeah, bad guys have friends too, and that's not a scenario that I'm comfortable with taking. So be very careful about who you take with you. And then a lot of people will say, "Well, I'm taking my husband. He's a retired cop." Good. Retired cop sitting in the car while you show the home, while he's out there playing Candy Crush on his phone. That's not helping you either. Good. And, what's he doing? I mean, what's he doing? That's great. I mean, that's good that you've got someone in the vicinity, but once bad things go down, because bad things happen in a matter of seconds, not a matter of minutes. How long is it going to take you for your husband or whoever's outside waiting in the car to discover or realize that something's wrong and then go investigate? And how are they coming into the situation? Are they coming in, guns ablazing, ready to attack? Or are they coming in, "Hey, what's going on?" And then they get caught off guard. How are they coming into the scenario? What are they doing there? And I'm not trying to say all this stuff to scare you. I'm just trying to say that all of these things that sound really, really nice, meet at the office, bring a friend, tell somebody where you're going, get pepper spray, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work in the real world. It's not dependable. And that's the key thing, is it's not dependable, because it doesn't do what you think it does. It sounds great, but it just doesn't work. So what that I skipped over and I want to kind of touch on real quick is check IDs. This one's my favorite. Well, no, I take that back. My favorite is meet at the office, because that's utter nonsense. But check IDs is my second favorite. So like, check IDs. Here, you go to meet with somebody, get an ID from them. It wouldn't take me very long to hit up a local high school or a college and find 30, 40, 50 fake IDs. Easy. Fake IDs. Come on, people. Now, I don't know about you. I'm in Virginia, and I would not be able to recognize a Wisconsin state driver's license. I wouldn't know what to look for. I wouldn't know what it looks like. Is it red? Is it blue? Is it green? Which side's the picture on? Is the picture on the left, picture on the right? Does it say Commonwealth of or state of? Where's the state seal? What's on the back of it? I have no idea. You could hand me an ID and I wouldn't know what I'm looking at. I don't know if it's real or not. Oh, good. This name matches the name that you gave me. Great. Oh, and it's got an online presence. You got a Facebook account. What does this tell you? There are services out there. One of the big seminars that's out there is they're going to talk to you about this. What is it called? Smart Card, Smart Trust. But anyway, they're verifying different online accounts and features. And that, if you're watching this in Virginia or in our area or anywhere where there's a lot of military folks don't have a lot of an online presence. So some of these services are designed out there to do this aggregate search, to try and look through social profiles and look through different places online to try and pull together bits and pieces of information and determine, however they determine that makes no sense. They give you a score. And then they put together one, well, we think this person is who they say they are because their stuff matches up. Or we can't find very much on this person, so we say with very low confidence that we know anything about them, and it may or may not be. I don't know what that means. But they're taking all these things and looking up Facebook and looking up Twitter and all these other things. But if you're watching this in an area that has a lot of military, a lot of government workers, a lot of people with security clearances, they may or may not even have any on those online profiles. Law enforcement typically doesn't either. I know a lot of LEOs, and most of them, do not have any social media presence whatsoever. None. Think about it. And if you're law enforcement, you know this. If you're out there arresting bad guys, do you want that bad guy to be able to Google his way to your front door? No. What if you're in charge of or are responsible for maintaining our nation's secrets in a military or national defense manner or whatever? You don't want your information just out there. So that won't work for a lot of people in our area, in Loudoun County, for sure. A lot of your high net worth individuals also don't have those big profiles and big accounts, depending on whether or not they're a public figure or something along those lines. But I don't know what those things do. And it's very hard to verify someone's identity just because they said that this is who they are. And then they hand you a piece of plastic that, well, okay, that matches your name. What's that do for you? When are you going to make a photocopy of it? Okay, again, that helps the police start their search by knowing an alias, if it's an alias, but doesn't really do anything for you to prevent things from happening. Because that's the focus I hope that you get from this, is that you need to focus on prevention and not response. So if you're checking IDs, you've already met the person. And okay, that's okay. You can still meet with some people, but you have to establish your left and right limits. In the military, we kind of have these things where we have sectors of fire. And I know that I can't fire my weapon beyond a certain point over in this direction. And likewise, I can't go over in this direction because I have people down on this side that are doing this. Now, that's the fancy way of saying it, but basically, this is my world right here. I have it in front of me coming out at these two different angles. And why that's important is that if that's what I'm doing, I know that anything that I do has to fall within these parameters right here. It can't be outside of it. That means that if somebody is over there and I see them, I have to notify the people down there that, hey, this is in your lane. Now, how that relates back to real estate is that you need to know who you will meet and who you will not meet, who you will engage with and who you will not engage with, who will you take to see properties and who you will you not take to see properties. What are some of the signs, signals, and indicators that make you, without question, go, I'm sorry, I can't do that? What are they? Because if you just go on this willy-nilly, I'm just going to trust my gut, trust my instinct, check ID, we're going to meet at Starbucks, I've got pepper spray, and I've told my husband where I'm going. Yeah, that is not a formula for success. It might work. It might. But if you had a scenario, if you had a set of circumstances where you say, you know what, I don't meet anybody who hasn't been pre-qualified. Boy, well, that's a great way to screen your prospective clients, is to have them pre-qualify with a lender. Because the lender is going to be able to pull some information with Social Security and financial backgrounds that you just don't have access to. And it's a whole lot harder to fake your financial identity than it is to fake your, driver's license identity. You can ask law enforcement officers out there how many times they've been handed a fake ID or been given a fake name. Happens fairly regularly. So that might not work out for you. But what you need to understand is who you meet with and what are some of the things that it won't work. Do you meet no notice? Are you a jack in the box agent where just, somebody calls and you go, boing, and I go, okay, I'll meet you there. That's probably not a good idea either. But if you do that, and you absolutely can, if you are one of those, kind of whether going back to some of those old animal analogies from before, whether you're a skunk, whether you're a turtle, whatever your thing is, if you know that you can walk into that situation and maintain a level of control over that situation and understand, identify things that will make you immediately get off the X, not a script, just leave. If you've got that, then it opens up the possibilities that you can meet more people in more varied situations. I'm not really, I don't mind meeting people at a vacant house or something like that, but I'm going to act a little bit differently, a lot differently. And I know that as soon as something starts to take a turn, then I'm out of there. I haven't had to have that happen, but I know there are some certain things that I know I can't control. And those are some specific tactical type of things that we're going to get into in later sessions, but it's not for everybody. I want to make sure that everybody understands it's not for everybody. Little 90-pound Mildred at the office isn't going to go out there and going to have that big domineering presence. That's not what they do. And they shouldn't try, because it just looks foolish and nobody's buying it. Nobody's buying the fact that all of a sudden, because you took a 3-hour self-defense class and learned a super slow motion chokehold, that now all of a sudden you're willing, capable, and ready to defend yourself against 300-pound assailants. I don't know. I don't buy that. But so we've covered some of these things about meeting at the office and why that doesn't work. We covered some other things about checking IDs and how that has extreme limitations. And we want to talk about bringing a friend and make sure you bring the right friend. And I'm losing some of my train of thought on some of those. But meet at the office, check IDs, bring a friend, carry pepper spray, carry mace, carry some type of weapon with you. How all of these things have their severe limitations that go with them, and where they put you in the scale of events. If you think about things in terms of a Gantt chart, those timelines where you have the event. Now, in the military world, in the nuke world particularly, we talk about left of boom and right of boom. This is a WMD thing. So you have the event. The bad thing happens right here, and everything that, now I know we're going to be kind of mirrored image about how we're looking here, but everything that happens to the left of the event is prior to the event, prior to the explosion, prior to the detonation of that nuclear weapon. Everything that happens afterwards is recovery. Now, think about that in terms of a nuclear weapon, because that's where this idea came from, and that's one of my specialties that I've been in that field for a long, long time, is that you don't want things to happen right of boom. You don't want that event to kick off. You don't want that nuclear weapon to pop off, because once that happens, it changes the world instantly, and it's hard to recover. What you want to do is you want to focus on all those things that happen before the event, all of those things that lead up to it, and you want to keep it from happening. Now, I'm not talking 24 type scenarios where you have Jack Bauer running all around the world trying to prevent all these crazy things from happening, but you can do things to help prevent that event from kicking off. So one of the things that we're going to talk about as we go through the rest of this month is how to shift your mindset from right of boom response to, okay, something bad has already happened. The bad guy's already tried to attack me. How do I get to my pepper spray? How do I get to my app on my phone? How do I get to my gun? That's not good. That's not good planning. That's not a good idea, because the event has already happened. A life-changing, life-altering, irreversible, violent act has already happened. We want to prevent it from happening. We want to focus on stuff that's so far down there that you can't even see it yet. You can't even anticipate it. So this is why that's important to focus on the left of boom versus right of boom, is how we talk about it. This is the boom. You do not want the boom. The boom is bad. You want left of boom, to focus all your attention, most of your attention on left of boom, and then spend some time thinking about what if on the right of boom. But most of the training that we get these days when it comes to safety and security is about right of boom stuff. What do you do after the event? What do you do after you've met the client in the house? You're already in the house. Here's the advice. You're already in the house. Don't follow them down to the basement. Don't go into rooms first. Stay back behind them. You're already there. You're already there. And that all of those things are good. That's good advice. But keep in mind, all of that stuff is right next to boom. It's right next to it. You're already in the situation. You're already in the cage with the tiger. Best off not to be in the cage with the tiger, right? Focus on some of those things that happen down there. And then as we go through this month, we're going to talk about some of those tactical and strategic things that you can do to help move from real close to the boom to backing off a little bit and giving yourself a little bit more time, distance, and shielding about how to prevent certain things from happening even when they're getting really close. But what we don't want to do is focus on, oh, I've got self-defense. Here's the boom, here's the attack. And well, I learned karate last week. Yeah, I don't know about that. And going back to the law enforcement thing, if they train with their firearms a lot and they still miss the target 50% of the time under stress. So again, you really don't want to be down here. Your options get fewer and more difficult, and the outcome gets worse as time progresses down here. The more you're over here, the better off things are. So focusing on left of boom is a key element of all of this. Pardon me. And we're going to go through all of these pieces throughout this month. So if you stayed with me, I want to make sure I'm doing okay on time. If you stayed with me up to this point, I thank you. I thank you for tuning in. I thank you for commenting. As we go forward, I hope to be this, I'll get this right where it's not, I'm not sideways from the beginning. I was really hoping to do that landscape thing, but thank you. Thank you so much for joining. Share this, push this out there to other folks. And I'm going to be doing this again on this channel. See, but I'm changing up the time and the date because Tuesdays I realize are a little bit of a lot of people do their real estate meetings and their office meetings on Tuesdays and then head out to their open houses. I was kind of hoping to catch a little bit of a window of time there, but then we're also going to do this on my YouTube channel on Wednesdays. I haven't figured out a time yet. So if you got a suggestion for a time, put that down below and in the comments, and we'll figure out some kind of way to do that. I get up at 5 a.m., 7 days a week, 365 days a year, no matter what. So we can do it early if you like. But keep in mind, I do have to get my 3 young daughters up for school most mornings, and that kind of kicks off about 6:30. So got a smaller window in there. But outside of that, I'm happy to help. I want to be able to do this and share this back. It's my duty to do it. I have 3 young daughters. I have 2 sisters. I have a wife who has, I can't stand by and let bad advice be peddled out there and I don't think anybody means harm by it, but they just don't know what they don't know. They haven't been in these situations for themselves. And if you follow your own advice and you only seek, if you have a mortgage problem, you seek a mortgage expert. You have a real estate problem, you seek a real estate expert. You have a financial problem, you seek an accountant or maybe an attorney if you have a legal. When it comes to your own personal security and personal safety, yeah, any one of those things I just named, probably not your best. Probably not your best. Okay, I happen to be a real estate agent. I was a financial guy a long time ago. But again, a certain set of experience that is very specific and very detailed. It's not law enforcement. It's not uniformed cops, not patrol officer. I've actually been personally responsible for keeping people safe, both on an individual level and entire populations of military bases, installations. So I ask that you share this out with others who can benefit from it. Between now and tomorrow, I'll be putting out some more information, some teasers about what the next session is going to be and how things are going to roll with that for the YouTube stuff. If you're, you'll need, you'll probably need, I haven't checked this out yet, but you'll probably need a Gmail account at least to be able to log in to see the live stuff. We'll see how that works out. But come back here, come back to my channel, and I'll put information on my timeline about how all this stuff is going to work. And then again, Thursday at 2 p.m., we'll be right back here. Thursday, 2 p.m., next Tuesday at 10 a.m., and we're going to do this 3 days a week for the rest of the month. So I'm going to be digging in deep to a lot of different things. Every session builds a little bit off of the last one, and we're going to end up this last week of September with a lot of really awesome, cool stuff that's going to help you out and help you change the way you do things right away. So thanks again for watching. Please share this out, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow on YouTube and back here on Thursday. Thanks again.